Hello again, boys. This is video 2 of critical issues in business success or failure. I apologize for my nasally voice. Tends to be that time of year to be getting a cold. Anyway, um, this video is on the second bullet point there, management, staffing and teams. So away we go. By the way, you should be on page 416 of the textbook while watching this video. So here we go. So management, there's a couple of different definitions, and there's a traditional and a contemporary description of what management actually is. Traditionally speaking, management is concerned with coordinating a business's resources to achieve its goals. That sounds pretty basic, and that's because it is, but there's a lot of complexity within that. The more contemporary description highlights the fact that management is the process of working with and through other people to achieve the goals of the business in a rapidly changing environment. So I guess the key differences there is that in the contemporary version, it's highlighting that you have to work with your employees to help achieve goals, and it's I guess it's a move away from micromanagement to an overarching idea of management, and also accounting for the fact that there is a changing environment to deal with, which means that plans must be changed. There is some commonality though within those two definitions, and that is that management must firstly make the best use of limited resources, and the second one is being responsible for the business to actually achieve its goals. So there is a toss-up there between the resources that a management has in front of them and how best you can use those limited resources to actually achieve your goals. Resources could be financial, human resources, um, plant and equipment, your premises, whatever it is. You have to use them, put them in the mixing bowl, and eventually achieve the business's goals. So the most critical factor in business success or failure is the manager's skill. Okay, while we looked at, if you've seen the business plan video, it talks about the fact that the importance of the business plan is to ensure some validation of the business idea and to have a clear indication of the future. The manager is ultimately has to use that document, and so the skill that they have will result in success or failure. So what should a successful manager be able to do, or skillful manager be able to do? Well, firstly, you need to be able to solve difficult problems, okay? And that could be something like as simple as rostering to the complexity of deciding on pricing strategies, okay, across a range of different goods or services. A skillful manager should also be able to set and help attain important goals, okay? So management needs to be part of that goal setting process to be able to help achieve them. They need to be able to develop attitudes of commitment and ownership, that is across the employees of a business, okay? That is part of being a leader. And a skillful manager will create a positive business culture through their words and actions. I'm sure you guys have heard of the term a servant leader, and that is certainly, when you look at the contemporary definition of management, what we're talking about in terms of working with and through other people. And being a servant leader helps create a positive business culture. A skillful manager should be able to do even more things, and that is to firstly monitor the business's external and internal environments. So keeping an eye on both the internal and external environments, okay, economic conditions, geographic conditions, social conditions versus your location, your employees, and things of that nature. A skillful employee will plan and allocate resources. Okay, and that comes back to that commonality in the definitions that you have in every business. You always have a limitation of resources, so you need to allocate these appropriately. And you must coordinate the teams and departments. Okay, particularly if you're a CEO or general manager, you would need to look at every department. Take the headmaster, for example. Okay, he needs to keep an eye across all subject departments and keep an eye on Mr. Wells, Mr. Scottsy, Mr. Sellen, whoever it is across the departments. A successful manager will make sure each team's performance is working well. A few more. Um, I think I just mentioned it, but management must monitor the performance of these teams as well as coordinate them. And then skillful managers will successfully put workplace and business changes into action. Okay. There's no point in talking the talk if you don't actually walk the walk. And lastly, skillful managers must develop and implement schedules and operating plans. Okay. And that's really, when it comes down to it, actual hard documented policies, not just talk, but actual um, literary things that people can refer back to when they find themselves a bit confused in given situations. If you've ever worked in a business, you'd get a staff manual, is often the case, and that is part of developing schedules and operational plans. All right, we're going to look at staffing now in regards to management. Now, this goes without saying, but employers who are satisfied and motivated are more productive. That's a pretty obvious thing, okay? And I guess we've looked at a couple of different ways that you can motivate staff, whether it's through rewards and giving them some sort of personal stake in a business's goals. Okay, that can help motivate staff. And the more motivated they are, the more productive they'll be. And in a service-based business, employees can create a competitive advantage. Okay. Look, take McDonald's as an example. They have a very stringent customer service process, but they want to try and create synergy with every single customer experience. So when you walk into a McDonald's, you know that you're going to get good, quick, clean service, okay, and that is a competitive advantage of McDonald's. So management must control the staffing function, and that involves a process. And look, we'll look at this more in the third topic, business management, later on in term 3. But to begin with, anyway, management must control the staffing function, which involves firstly recruiting, then selecting, maintaining, training, and the separation of employees, and that is employees leaving the business, whether it is through redundancy or being fired. Okay. The last point to make when it comes to staffing is that making hasty recruitment selections can result in basically misfortune for both the SME owner and the employee. Okay, we've looked at different sources of employees, but in terms of the process, it is quite difficult, and we've looked at on costs of human resources. It's quite an expensive thing, so it's important that you don't choose an employee willy-nilly. You've got to have a proper recruitment process. So a bit more on staffing. Firstly, in regards to external recruitment. Okay. So external recruitment, this involves the advertisement, screening and interview process of potential employees. Okay. There's a couple of other things. Okay. So it requires the searching for a new employee. And it actually involves going to an outside agency, a recruitment agency, to reduce or decrease the time involved in searching for these new employees. Because recruitment is time consuming, okay, because of that advertising, um, the screening and interview process. I've mentioned the fact that there's agencies out there like Hayes and Michael Page International. There's a whole host of them if you go onto seek.com that you can find. But SMEs owners use this because it basically, well, a paid agency firstly interviews the candidates and they can recommend a short list. So that actually makes things a lot quicker for you as an SME owner. And often, um, if owners use an expert, then you know that you're going to get good quality candidates. Okay. In the textbook, it looks at Mission Australia, but there's a whole host of different employment agencies out there. And I guess the main advantage of using external recruitment is that it takes away the time that's involved with it. The disadvantage is that it can be expensive. So this next point, SME owners must achieve the right mix and level of employee skills. To do this, they can complete, firstly, what's known as a skills audit. The definition there is under the BizWord on page 418. So a skills audit is a process that establishes the current skill levels of employees and future skill level requirements. Okay. This is a really important thing to do. It is a time-consuming thing to do, but it's really, really important. The main aims, okay, of a skills audit, they're listed there in bullet points. The first thing is that it identifies the skills that will give the business a competitive advantage. So if we look at McDonald's again, when you're recruiting people, you need to understand that people need to have certain personality traits required to be able to interact with customers. So that is something that McDonald's would do, and they would be able to identify the types of personalities that would be better at providing customer service at a cash register rather than working out the back in the kitchen. And that would give them that competitive advantage in determining whether one person's better for out the front of the shop or out the back. The other aim is that it identifies weaknesses in the skills base which, unless overcome by training or recruitment, will actually threaten the business's survivals. So from that point of view, it's really important to understand where an employee is at and whether they need to be upskilled through training or whether someone else needs to be brought in to do the job. So a skills audit is really important for both the current skill levels of employees and any future skills requirements. Over on page 419, the figure 13.4 shows a table, if you're looking at your textbook right now, and it shows a typical employee skills audit form. And you can see there that it has a label for the employees' names, any personal experience, current skills, and future skill requirements. That's a really simple one that a SME in particular could quite easily do in a reasonably short amount of time. You could even potentially ask your employee to fill out the first 3 columns there, and then you could do the future skill requirements. The next part of employee skills databases is it's important to do something known as a skills inventory. And I guess this is almost the follow-on from doing a skills audit. A skills inventory is a database containing information on the skills and abilities and qualifications of existing staff. So you could almost say that it is like that skills audit form above, but probably with a little bit more detail. Okay. So what is it useful for? I was almost said useless. It's not useless, it is useful, and it's important because it can help you quickly identify employers who match any specifications you need for jobs. So if you have a new job that's coming up that you currently have no one for, if you want to avoid the expense of hiring a new staff member, potentially you could end up um, filling that position through internal recruitment. And the easiest way to do that is to refer to a skills inventory. You could, if it's something that you've set up in an Excel spreadsheet, you could quite simply use data filters and things like that to be able to quickly find out who's got the right qualifications, who's got the skills um, that that fit this job, and you could save yourself a whole lot of time and money by internally recruiting um, instead of going externally, simply by keeping up with these employee skills databases through the audit and inventory process. So what I thought I'd show you is actually the recruitment process of Qantas. This is just a screenshot from their website. So you can see that there's a whole bunch of process within recruiting, and you guys, when you go for future jobs, will have to deal with this sort of stuff. But you can see that it varies role to role, okay, and that comes from doing a skills audit for a particular role, and Qantas will have done that. And it depends on the segment the role sits in, okay, whether that's in, with actually flying, being a pilot, or whether it's in baggage handling or at the check-in desk, okay. The recruitment process would change for each of those, which sounds pretty obvious, but it's true. And so there is an assessment process, okay, and you can see that there's a whole bunch of different segments here, whether it's pilots, flight attendants, there's graduate programs, apprenticeships, and not to mention Indigenous programs, which is related to corporate social responsibility. But I just wanted to show you guys this because it just demonstrates the complication, I guess, of the recruitment process and why sometimes external recruitment might be a more advantageous thing to do. Or I should say internal recruitment is a more advantageous thing to do. Okay, we're almost there. It is quite a big bullet point, this one. So if you chose this one, maybe you're thinking, bugger, I'll do another one. But anyway, let's look now at teams in terms of management. So firstly, when it comes to a team approach, and it's been researched many times, but a team's approach can be a catalyst for superior performance. Okay, teams are actually replacing individuals as the basic building blocks of businesses. And the textbook says of all sizes. I mean, if you're a sole trader, that's not necessarily true. But if you're a business that is looking to adopt a flatter organisational structure, then teams is the way to go. Basically breaking people down into, instead of having one middle management person that looks after a whole department. Say there's a marketing manager, okay, and then underneath, within the marketing department, you have market analysts, you have graphic design artists putting together ads, you have guys that are selling certain things within the marketing department. It might just be the sales team, okay. You could end up having, in a particularly big business, and remember SMEs can be up to 200 employees, you could have someone in one team that's worth 20 or 30 people. And if you're doing that, that's not a flat organisational structure. It's better to actually break those people down into even smaller teams, okay? The reason you do that, okay, is because of these reasons, all right? So firstly, teams can make more informed and creative decisions. The reason for that is because people feel less pressured when there's less people around. If you're a team of 3 or 4, people are far more likely to want to contribute in that situation and be creative than when it's a room of 20. And you guys are the same in class, you know. Some people are not so comfortable putting up their hand and contributing, but get people into little groups and people are willing to contribute. Teams also work without the need for close supervision, okay? Now, obviously, in an ideal scenario, you would have a seniorish person in every team. but that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. But um, the fact is that teams, if you trust people and your employees are motivated, then they can generally work without that close supervision. Teams also create greater levels of employee cooperation, which makes sense, and they also provide improved customer service and or production output. Okay. Um, Last point is that high functioning teams are difficult to develop due to time constraints. However, efficient teams result in improved productivity. Um, Now, I guess from a business perspective, you could look at Shaw. Okay, it's an easy example. You could look at the different departments across school. Let's just take the business studies or economics and business studies department, and out of the, what is it, 7 or 8 staff, we're then broken down into individual year groups and subjects. So for Year 11 business studies, there's only 4 teachers that look after you guys. So we actually meet every now and again and we discuss different assessment tasks, and that's way more productive sitting down within that 4 than having to include people that don't even care about Year 11 business studies. Okay. Um, so it's, even though it can be time consuming, if you find the time, it is more efficient. And that, guys, is video 2 done.